Good morning from Toyota City Museum. My name is Tomoya Nakamura. I'm the Dean of Graduate School of Management, GLOBIS University. We are very honored to have 3 generations of masters of Nishikawa-ryu dancing. This is my plan for today. I'd like to ask Iemoto Nishikawa Kazumasa sensei to explain about Nishikawa-ryu dancing in the beginning. After that, I'd like to ask the 3 generations of masters, starting from Ukon sensei, Soshi of Nishikawa-ryu, and then to father, Kazumasa sensei, and then to Kaku-san, Pekkaku Shihan of Nishikawa-ryu. So I'll be asking the 3 generations of masters, what was the context when they inherited the master status? What was the mission as master of Nishikawa-ryu of the time? What they inherited from the master, what they kept, and what they changed. And after hearing from the 3 generations, I'd like to ask the role of art in modern society. And finally, I'd like to ask the expectation of leaders for future generations. So from Nishikawa sensei, Kazumasa sensei, can you explain about Nishikawa-ryu dancing?
Yes. Before I go on with Nishikawa, I would like to talk a little bit about classic. We always say this is classic or this is traditional, but what is that? I am thinking that the classics that you can see in the modern world is everything which was very, very popular at the time. Kabuki had a time about 200 years ago. There was only Kabuki. Kabuki was the modern play, and it was functioned almost as TV news, which picked up the theme. I'm sorry, I can't see your face. Let me move a little bit. And they picked up the modern day's theme, and the dialogues and their story was very, very popular. The music was popular. That shamisen music was the most exciting music of that time, just like electric guitar in the 50s. And I should say everything will go on to the classic. So the rock and roll is already a classic music for some generation. People don't know who the hell is Led Zeppelin, or who's Elvis Presley, the students will ask. And the Beatles, when they were popular, they had long hair, they had the crazy music, and the young generation's parents were so worried that, you know, my kids are listening to Beatles. But now you can hear the Beatles in the very high society French restaurant, and there is no problem with that. So please imagine that, and I will explain a little bit about Nishikawa-ryu. Our Nishikawa style has started about 170 years ago, and it was divided from another group of Nishikawa in Tokyo, and it was called Edo at that time. It was a time for samurais, and then people moved. The first master, Koisaburo Nishikawa, moved to Nagoya and opened his Nishikawa-ryu. When the World War II was ended, Nagoya was totally bombed out, and there was nothing. So the mayor asked my grandfather to do something to cheer up the citizens. And at that time, 70 years ago, dances was not that old. And he has been performing to the militaries at hospitals, and he was ordered to do that. And he remodeled a lot of dances. He have danced in the very popular music, or he even danced in the military music, and made the dance interesting. So our performance became really, really popular at that time. People from all over the nation came to see the performance. And then Ukon was born during the war, and then he had a great story, but I think he will tell his story in his time. But he became, he received this tradition, but he had this, he had received the soul of this. This recreation, adjusting to the time, and he made a lot of new stuff. And then 3 years ago, I inherited, before he passed away. He received his iemoto when grandfather passed away. And it's a very usual, common thing. We inherit when the first master died. But he decided to give it to me while I'm 48. And I want to do that to Kirk. Or if he wants. He doesn't have to decide that right now. But
obvious price.
Yes. So this is about the beginning of Nishikawa-ryu, and it was time of the. We didn't do one thing all the time. We just changed our style all the time. So that's about it.
Thank you, Nishikawa sensei. Thank you, Kazumasa sensei, for walking us through 170 years of Japanese dancing. When you inherited the master status from your father, what was your first thought?
まず私はうちの父から、人間はいつまでも続くものではない。だから一番自分が引退する時は息子である君が言ってくれと言われてたんです。
Well, my father taught me repeatedly was that human beings, people will not continue the same way endlessly. So, if you feel that it is my time to leave my position, you should tell me as a son.
ある時うちの父が舞台があまりうまくなかったので、お父さんも引退したらどうですかという話をしました。そしたらその日以来私と一言も口を聞かずにおりました。
So since that was his teaching, there was a time when I saw that his performance did not go well, my father's performance did not go well one day. And therefore I told him, maybe it is the time that you pass on to the next generation. And then, since then, he did not speak a word to me. He stopped talking to me.
だから人間は一旦座った椅子からはなかなか動かないものです。
So I learned that when people sit in a certain chair, they don't want to leave that.
だから私はその時のショックが大きかったので、生きてるうちに隣へ受け継がさせようと思いました。
So that was a very shocking incident for me. That is why I decided that I will pass on the headmaster position when I'm still alive.
それが西川流のためであり、ひいては日本舞踊のためであると思ったからです。
I thought that it will be the right decision for the Nishikawa school and also for the Japanese odori dancing society.
そして今新しい家元になったらどんどんシステムが変わっていくというか、踊りも変わっていくわけですね。
And now having a new headmaster, the system that is in the Nishikawa school is changing, and also new types of dancing performances has been introduced.
だから今は私がこっちへついていく方が大変です。
So now I'm having a very tough time to try to keep up with these changes.
でもそれが西川の日本舞踊のためになることだったら私はいいことだなと思っております。
But even though it is tough to keep up with changes, I believe that if that is the good, this change has been the good for the Nishikawa school, then I think it is a very good thing to do.
つまり日本の伝統の中には引き際の大切さ。
And so what I want to say is that an element in the Japanese tradition is that you should know the appropriate time. It's important to know the appropriate time to stop something, to cease something.
それが私の頭にあって、あとは生きている間は協力し死んでいくだけです。
So that remains in my head, and therefore, as long as I live and I'm healthy, I will support and cooperate. And the rest, what's left for me is when my time comes, I'll just leave.
Ukon Sensei, in your era, you have started to do Nishikawa dancing overseas.
はい。はい。
Can you introduce some of your initiatives while you are headmaster of Nishikawa-ryu?
はい。まず家元になったということだけで一生懸命いろんなことをやろうとするんですね。
Well, one thing I can say is that once you become Iemoto, the headmaster, once you become a headmaster, you have a tendency of wanting to try new things.
なんか前の家元がやらなかったことを一生懸命やろうとするんです。
You try to do a lot of things with your effort of what the previous headmaster did not do.
で成功したこともあり失敗したこともたくさんあります。
So among the various trials I did, the various initiatives I took, there were successful ones and also the ones that failed.
そういう繰り返しをして新しい家元になった時に勉強をしていきました。
So repeating these kinds of actions, repeating those efforts, I gradually learned a lot of things and became headmaster.
その中で海外公演もやってみました。
So one of the attempts in those various initiatives that I took was to have the bring the performance overseas.
主な公演はアメリカの横断する、縦断するといいますか、5000キロぐらいの公演をやりましたけれども、どうぞ。
And one of the major overseas performance or shows that I did was to do a traveling show within the U.S. So for the U.S. main continent, traveled about 5,000 kilometers with going to many multiple locations with our performance.
普通は日本の伝統を紹介するって言いながら外国へ行って日本人を集めるんですよね。
I think a usual pattern that you see for these Japanese traditional art being performed outside of Japan is that you say it is the purpose is to introduce the Japanese art or tradition overseas. But what actually happens is that at that area, when you go outside Japan, you call upon Japanese people to come to see.
だからもちろん日本の方には日本へ帰って見てください。私はアメリカへこのご紹介に来たんでということでほとんど日本の方に見せないで公演をしてきました。
But for my case, I wanted really to introduce us, the Japanese tradition, to the foreigners to Japan. So I asked the Japanese people to come to see our performance when you come back to Japan. And therefore, while I was doing this overseas show, most of the people were not Japanese. It was more the non-Japanese people.
それが一番大きな私のスタートだったと思います。
So I think that was one of my major starting or major initiatives that I took as headmaster.
When you are a headmaster, there is no other headmaster to guide you.
家元で自分を率いてくださる人がいないわけですよね。
はいはいはい。
How do you define the direction? How do you find out whether you're doing the right thing or you need to amend?
はい。
修正しなければいけないというふうに決めるのはその自分を率いてくれる人いないわけですからというふうに決められるでしょう。
まず若い時から勉強する日本の勉強というのはまず習うという見習うといいますかね、まず真似をするということなんですね、一番最初は。
Well, I guess one thing is that you learn from quite a young age. And when you talk about learning, studying in Japanese traditional terms, you first start by copying. That would be your first type of learning.
だから自分の先輩がやっていることをまず真似をしてみる。
So you'll first start by trying to copy what your seniors are doing.
で、それ完全に真似ができるようになってから初めて自分の考え方を入れていくという方法を取りました。
And so what I started there also too, starting by copying my seniors, and once I was able to perfectly copy what my seniors were doing, then was the time that I could introduce in my own ideas. In the world of dancing, there are people who say negative things, people who criticize, but that at the end is part of the development of art itself.
だから先頭に立って人を引っ張っていくということは大変なことだと思います。
So I believe being a leader, being at the very front of things and pulling the people together with you is a very hard job to do.
まあ人が作ったことを後から行くのは楽ですから、引っ張られる方は引っ張る方よりも、まあ引っ張る方が大変ですね。
And if you are the follower, it's just that you are following what a person in front of you, the leader, has made. So I think it's much easier. So when you have a group, I think it's easier that you follow a leader rather than being the leader itself.
だから今はもう引っ張る方を息子に譲りましたので、私はもう列車のように後ろからくっついていくだけです。
So, but now for myself, I passed on this role of leading the people, pulling people together with me. So I'm like in like a train car, one of the cars of a train that's just being pulled and just go with the flow.
つまり先頭に立つ人が変わったら、それに従ってみんなが一緒になってやっていくというのが日本の芸能の良さだと思います。
I think very good points or positive things of the Japanese art is that when the head changes, the people will follow follow the new head and try to keep up with the new head.
でも決して引っ張られていく方が重すぎて先頭が大変ではいけないんですね。
But saying that, you can't be the heavy load on the leader. You can't just depend on the leader to pull you.
Kazumasa sensei, you were born in the Japanese dancing, family, but I heard that you went to study in New York. Yes. Why did you go to New York?
Why I went to New York? I went to New York to study art. I went to art school. I didn't dance during those times. I wanted to escape from the dance. I wanted to escape from the old thing because I had to do this old dance since I was small, and a lot of friends made a fun out of me. And a lot of people thought it's a lot of nonsense and why are you doing this strange thing? And the only good thing, and I was not even a good dancer. My friend made fun of me, and my father and my sister was my teacher, which is hard. Imagine that. If you want to learn something from your parents or sister, and Nishikawa had this Spartan attitude of this teaching. It was very hard at that time. So I wanted to escape from that, and that's why I went to. And the only good thing I could do was drawing, doodling. So first I wanted to be a cartoonist, and then I found out that I cannot draw the lines so good, and I could not come up with a story. So I found that there's a thing called designers, and designer sounds cool than the dancers. So I went to New York and studied that, and then I went to fine art. I learned modern art, Picasso and all these great modern artists, which is strange, like the classical dance. And it was a kind of a, I thought that it was a very free world, but the modern art world was not that free that I thought. You have to find a gallery and you have to sell the products, and you have to be, you cannot be like, I'm the artist and I'll do whatever I want to do. And then, so I found a lot of similarities, and my art became bigger and bigger. First I was drawing, and then I made a sculpture, and then I made one huge installation using the room. And I found out, and my instructor told me that, oh, this is very theatrical. I said, yeah, because I'm from that theatrical family. Yeah, of course. And I found out the similarity of these two arts, and I thought, like, it's interesting. And I started to look differently to my house, family business, and Japanese tradition. I thought Japanese tradition was like, but when I went to New York, people were so fascinated by Japanese art, and people asked me, like, what is Zen? Do you know Zen? You're Japanese, you must know. And I don't know, but then like I started to read, and then and a lot of people are into bonsai, the plant, little garden thing, and I mean, I was amazed that people know bonsai in New York, but it was a cool thing, and people slept in futon mattress, and they don't want bed. Like the cool New Yorker wants futon rather than a bed. I was shocked, and then I became pretty fair to my family business. And before that, when I was 15, my father did the American tour, and I went there with him. I helped as the assistant and dancers, and all the American audience, they expresses how much they're enjoying their show, and they're like ah, and then and then they stand up and and that was another shock for me, because like, oh, I thought this is some kind of, you know, tradition, and it was not entertainment, even though we did this entertainment show. But you know, I felt that, oh, that classical thing could be cool, and then, but I was still doodling, and, you know, and didn't want to dance. And then I went to college and found out that this is not bad, and then I came back. And then why I went to American school, college is that I went to an international school since I was in kindergarten. And the reason of that was that it's just like an accident. When I was kindergarten, you know, I didn't want to go to kindergarten because there are so many kids. You know, I was surrounded by the old women, and when I was small. So, you know, if you go to kindergarten, everyone's screaming, and it was too noisy, and I don't want to be there. I don't want to be part of that. I refused to go to kindergarten. I changed. My parents changed me to another kindergarten called Maria Kindergarten, the Christian kindergarten, and I didn't want that too. So, and then my father had a friend who has a kid in international school, and he said, well, American education is more human. You should take. your kid to international school like my kids. And we went to see the school, and we were watching with my father, with my mother, and my father, I remember he told me that, well, they're all speaking English, and you don't understand. Even the teacher is mad at you, you won't understand. And I say like, oh, and then and I got into the school. But no, you will know, because the teacher will pull your ear. So I just knew. And there I had, in the beginning, I guess I had a hard time to adjust, but I couldn't understand the teachers, but my friends were my translators. So, and then I didn't go to any Japanese school. I didn't get any Japanese education, and then I was doing this weird thing, and I got into weird school, and so there's no part of the world that I could be unless I come back to Nishikawa. So that's why I'm here.
Kazuma Sensei, 3 years ago, you became headmaster. What was the things that came to your mind? What did you want to do as the new headmaster?
Well, when the day we have decided that I'm going to take over, I thought that, oh, the time has come. No escape. I was trying to, I remember. I didn't do that. So, and then, like, what the hell should I do? That's like honest thing I had in my mind. From the activities before that, I was kind of preparing for the day, and for instance, I did produce one performance using a lot of different performers, like ballet dancers and actors, and like mixture of Western and Japanese culture, and see if I can succeed that. Or I started to work with a bunch of group of peoples, not in this field. I work a lot with cities and prefectures, and then I have started to work with the tourism, cultural tourism, in my job. So I did a lot of, because I went to American school, I'm okay with connecting with many different people. I can, I was in New York, so you'll be able to deal with any kind of people if you live there. And I was teaching in a college. I was teaching Japanese dance to the male college students who, in this school, was not so good. People study. People cannot. People were constantly watching his smartphone, and then he was like, he's playing a slot in this smartphone. It's not smartphone; it's like dumb phone. But and then they cannot sit down, and so I had to take them to gym and and let's run around, and they let them get tired. And I had those 20 years of those times. So I had a lot of time dealing with someone who does not have any interest to our job. That's these experiences was my tool, my ally. He had his own experience, but I learned from him that I just have to learn by myself from the experience. And my background was such a thing, so I decided to be ally with everyone. And my father, I remember he was saying, there's a pyramid, and in the top there's a leader. People think like that. but that's when he become a leader. I will turn this pyramid around. I'm going to be in the bottom. I'm going to be moving around, and then everyone will move. That's the image of leadership that he had. During a long time, this pyramid got a little old, and like people, you just don't. Part of the pyramid became old, and they fall off, and and it was like I thought it was hard to grab that and then turn, so I decided to break that down and make it flat and try to not to lead but to facilitate and to let them move, and I try to create the place that people will move into that direction. So I'm not like directing person, but I'm quite how do I say this? It's like Aikido that Nakamura Sensei is doing. He's doing the martial arts, but he don't punch in the front, in the beginning. He will use the people's movement, and it's not the business. It's not the martial arts to crush someone's brain or anything like that. So I decided to be a leader like that, and it's kind of difficult because the time is changing. But I'm having a feeling that dealing with the young generation, I just have to be that way because I mean I was after all these Spartan training. I'm ready to do this Spartan training to young generation. I was ready. I had my stick in my hand, but and it was not the time for that. And you can't do that anymore. And we have to discuss with your students. Maybe I have to ask questions rather than tell something. Probably maybe that's the thing I'm having in my mind.
Thank you. Kaku-san, はじめまして。
はじめまして。
I'd like to ask the question to Kazumasa Sensei and Kaku-san at the same time. If I can do the math, Kazumasa Sensei, you are still in your 40s?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But you have chosen Kaku-san as to be master, as Bekkaku Shihan. Why have you chosen Kaku-san among the many disciples that you have? And why have you chosen Kaku-san when you are in your 40s?
The reason, the person who have decided Bekkaku Shihan was my father. Oh. When he decided me to be another master.
I see.
So maybe you can ask that question to Ukon-san.
I see.
はい。まずたくさんの人に教えますから、教えた人たちがやりたいという間は先生がいなきゃいけない。はい。それがリーダーの責任だと思うんですね。だから私がいなくなった時に和正君がやったとしても、次のリーダーを決めておかないと続いていかないだろうと、習う人が困るだろうと、そういう考え方です。
Well, my thought was that first of all, when you are teaching many people, and as long as there are many people who want to learn, it is the responsibility of the leaders to have a teacher to be able to teach. And for me, when I decided to pass on my position to the next headmaster, to Kazumasa-san, then I thought that, well, not only, of course, while he's there, my students, the apprentices will have a person to learn from, but I thought it would be my responsibility to show who the next leader was, so that the people who are learning, who want to learn from us, can see the continuation and will keep up the motivation.
ただ未来は将来は彼が 継ぐかどうか私には分かりません。
So I have decided that he will be have decided that he will be the headmaster. I don't know how the future will be. So, and I don't know how his feelings will be in the future. So that is an unknown if he decides to take over headmaster or not.
Kaku-san,
Hi.
what did you feel when you were appointed Bekkaku-shihan?
Yes, I started dancing when I was 2 years old, but my father is from Arkansas. I'm half Japanese, half American. I went to an American school, international school, same as Kazumasa, and I grew up playing basketball. And I always wanted to be a basketball player growing up. And at the age of 12, I've talked to my mom. I said I wanted to be a basketball player. I want to make lots of money, and I want to buy you purses and all these things. And my mother said, she sat me down and said, "Kirk, you chose to be the headmaster of Nishikawa School." And I said, "When did I choose that?" And she looked at me and she said, "At the age of 3." And that's when I knew that my path was solid. But I did want to rebel very much, and I played basketball until I graduated high school. And I went to the University of Arkansas, where my father went, my grandfather before that, and I wanted to study business. And my father said, "Kirk, don't study business, go into drama, just go into drama." So I crossed out my major and I went to drama. And I'm still rebelling, so I wasn't very interested in theater. And I got into the theater and I got into the productions there, and I decided I don't want to be an actor, I don't want to be on stage. I've been on stage all my life, I want to be on the side. And that's when I really learned what it was to be on stage by being away from it, I think. I built sets, so I got to build all the sets and the props that the actors would use. I built costumes, so I got to be on stage in a different way. But I also learned the importance of how many people it takes to create one piece of a theater. And coming back to what the question was, when my grandfather appointed me, he took me aside and he appointed my mother and my aunt as Iemoto Hosa, which is, I think roughly translated as the supporter, yes, the supporter of the Iemoto. And I thought that's what I was going to be as well, and that's what I was. But he took me aside and he said, "I want you to be different. I want you to be Bekkaku-shihan." And I am the first of its kind. I'm the first of a Bekkaku-shihan. There's never been anything before. And the reason he told me that he wanted me to be Bekkaku-shihan is because if I'm an Iemoto supporter, I only support what the Iemoto does. But he wanted me to find something different. And I think that is my way of supporting the school and supporting my Iemoto, my headmaster, is by being different. I'm 28 right now, and I think my advantage that I have, where I don't have an advantage on skills or knowledge or wisdom as they do, but I think my advantage is my youth. And I do have a chance to speak closely to the younger generation and learn how different their way of thinking is from the other people that I've grown up around. Currently I work on a television program. I do a talk show host on NHK as well, and the audience that comes are 40-year-olds and older. So a lot of my fans are 40-year-olds and above. But I would talk to the younger generation and talk about TV, and a lot of them, they don't watch TV. And of course, so they don't know that I'm on TV. But I see that it's a new generation, and not as a problem, but as a possibility. A lot of people are interested in doing the technology on their phones and everything, and I think that's another stage for what we do, maybe a possibility for what we do. So I'm very, I think that's my position right now, is to currently do something different. Yes.
How do you find deepen your uniqueness? How do you find, you know, a role of Nishikawa-ryu in the modern time? Can you help how you define the Bekkaku Shihan, your special position?
It's still something that I'm still trying to find how to define. It is new to me, and I've only been a Bekkaku Shihan for 3 years. I studied in Los Angeles as well after I got out of college. I decided not to graduate, and I decided to move to Los Angeles during my studies because I was I felt that there's more to learn over there. And because I was rebelling during my youth, I did not pick up a lot of the teachings that my masters had taught me, I guess, my mother including, as well as the masters next to me. So my teachings really started to sink in. The teachings that really started to sink in was from a Western point of view. Opposed to, or what I started learning was objectives. What is your objective? What is your motivation? This is through acting. What are the stakes that your character has? And all these things that are very internal, and I have to figure out internally. And I came back, and when I was 21, I started coming back and forth, and I wanted to prove what I've learned, only to find that as the more I tried to prove myself, the more that I was getting beaten down because of the certain way that instead of going from internally outwards in Western acting, Japanese acting is outwards and in. You find the form first, and then you make it true to yourself. And I've started, and I know Kazumasa was a very good person to lead me because he is very international as well, but I learned that I will never lose the American side by being humble to the Japanese side. And so currently what I try to do is find a blend that I can hopefully connect not just to younger generations in Japan, but to hopefully younger and all generations around the world.
Thank you. Maybe my last questions to the three Nishikawa masters. We talked about leadership a lot, so I'm going to skip that. What is the role of art? What can art do to modern society? What can art do to management? May I hear from anyone who is ready?
You know, when I was small, there's a religious group which was sponsoring Nishikawa, and when I was small, I had to pray on that thing, you know, because I thought I'm in that religion, and I was doing that, and then one day, my mother said, "Oh, you don't have to pray that. You will be Buddhist now, because the master have died and there's no sponsor." So I knew that. Then I found out that there was the sponsors, but in the story they had, it was called "Life is Art," and he was teaching that life is art. So live life as the art. And I like that phrase, and I've been, you know, doodling and drawing and dancing, and then and I found a lot of similarity in the business too. Business is art. It's very creative. You have to be an artist to be a good businessman. That's what I think. The unique businessman is cooler than the middle class artist. You know, that's why people love to read about Steve Jobs, and you know, he's a cool artist type businessman. And I think even you're out of business, every activities can be art. And I think to know that learning art or practicing art will be a good activity. So I really recommend everyone that I meet to keep any kind of art with you and keep on doing that till you die. So I think art is one of the essence of your life. So I'm in the dance side now, so I usually ask people to dance because it's good. It's a good exercise. If you dance a happy dance, you cannot be sad in your inside. You know? If you have a deep problem, please try and dance a stupid dance and have a same question in yourself. You'll have a different answer. So I say dance. Please dance. Any kind of dance is good. Hula is good. The hip hop is good. Any dance is good. I'm in the dance side. So I don't want to say that Japanese dance is the art or Japanese art is the art, but the art is the life, I guess. So that's what I think.
Thank you.
こんなに息子や孫が考えてると初めて知りました。
It's the first time that I understood that my son and also my grandson is thinking about many things. I've heard so much from them.
私事で恐縮ですが、今年の1月に家内を亡くしました。
So just to speak a little bit of myself, actually in January I lost my wife.
9年間ちょうどうちで在宅介護って皆さんわかるかな、うちで介護をしてました。
So about 9 years she has been in the house being nursed at home.
その時にうちの家内を毎日毎日楽しませることが私の役目でした。
And during the 9 years, my role was to make my wife feel joy every day.
だからいかに自分が一生懸命やってもお客さんが楽しんでくれなかったら意味がないものだっていうことをしみじみと感じました。
And during the 9 years, I deeply felt that even though you believe that you're making the effort, unless your audience is enjoying themselves, is having fun with what you're doing, it's meaningless.
そして介護というのは大変だと思ってました。
And of course, I always thought that nursing someone is a very tough job, challenging thing to do.
しかし本当に大変なのは大変というよりも辛いですね。介護は大変辛いです。
But and nursing is rather than being tough, it is some very severe or it hurts you. It really it hurts yourself.
でも本当に辛いのはその相手がいなくなったことです。
But it was mostly devastating when that person that you're nursing for is lost.
お仕事もきっとそのように皆さんが楽しんでくださることをやることが皆さんのこれからの一番大事なことだろうと私は思います。
I believe that there are some commonalities with business and the work that you do. Probably what's most important for you to do is that the people that you work for what your work is for, those people enjoy it, or those people I think the most important thing is what the people you're working for thinks of.
だから自分の国のためだけでなくて 世界のために皆さんがお仕事をしてくださることが結局一人一人たちの責任だと思います。
So at the end, I believe that each and everyone's responsibility will be not only to work for your country that you are in, but to think of the whole world, think of everyone that you are facing, and that will be most important at the end as a leader, I believe.
今日は初めて子どもたちの気持ちも聞けていいチャンスを与えていただいてありがとうございました。
I'm very appreciative of this opportunity today because I was able to hear the thoughts and the mind of my.
Yes, thank you. I think that art is communication and it's a connection. I've gotten a chance to collaborate with a lot of different styles of dancing. I got to collaborate with a flamenco dancer last year and a classical pianist. And also in Los Angeles, I did some things with hip hop dancing and everything. And although we were able to speak in English, it was a different kind of level of connection that I found through the art, and not just between artists, but when I did a workshop in Los Angeles at the Japan Foundation, we did a process of putting on the costumes, putting on the makeup, then putting on the costumes and the wig, and then performing in front of the audience. And after the show, we talked to the audience members, and I remember one person came up to me, and he was in tears, and he said, "My granddaughter has kabuki syndrome," and I didn't really understand what it was at that moment, but I looked it up, and it was about when they were born, when they're cross-eyed. And in kabuki we have a look where one of the heroes or the demon goes and he cross-eyes himself, and I guess that is where the name came from. And so to him, kabuki was something very terrifying. But when he came and he watched what kabuki dance was, he learned that it was something beautiful, and it helped him kind of understand something that I would never be able to understand completely, his feelings, but it helped him get over something that he was trying to get over. And I think art is a bridge and a connection, not just between two artists, but through different upbringings and different ways of thinking. Yes.
And I'll dance in the female role to see the difference.